Hello and welcome to Spirit Pig. This is the show that explores how to live a fulfilled life. I'm Duncan CJ and today I'm speaking with Kristen Hadeed. Kristen graduated from the University of Florida in 2010 when she was a junior in college, and she founded a company by mistake. What started as a way to make enough money just to buy a pair of jeans she wanted quickly turned into something way bigger, and Kristen had absolutely no idea that this little side project would turn into a huge career. And at 21 she turned down a six-figure job in finance to continue growing her company, which now has, I think, 2 locations, more than 500 employees at some times of the year, and she's really also well known for her TEDx talk entitled How to Retire by 20, which has more than 1.7 million views. And she recently landed a book deal. You're doing all sorts. You've got like a tech company now, and you talk all around the place. So talking about, to companies, to colleges, all about, spreading her message about leadership and how to engage millennials. So, Kristen, thank you so much for being here. This is really, really exciting.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you were, like I mentioned it a little bit at the beginning, but you were cleaning some houses just to earn a bit of extra money. I think you got recruited. You had a couple of friends helping you out, and then you had the confidence. I love this, to approach one of the largest property management groups in the area and manage to get a contract to clean thousands of apartments. So your little team of 4 people suddenly grew to 60 in less than a month. It's crazy.
Well, yeah, so I started the company because it was quite by accident, actually. I always thought I would move to New York and be a banker on Wall Street, but I was in college and I wanted a pair of jeans that I could not afford. And I had a scholarship for college, but it barely covered my expenses. And so I asked my parents if they would buy me this pair of jeans, knowing they would probably say no. And of course, that's what they said, but I really wanted them. And so I thought, what is something I can do on my own to just make enough money and buy these jeans? And I put an ad on Craigslist to clean one house. And to be honest, I don't really like cleaning. I'm not a neat freak. I just thought it'd probably be an easy way to make $100. And so I put an ad on Craigslist. Someone called, I cleaned her house, and I bought the jeans. And I thought that was the end of the story, but she called and asked me to come back every week. And then she told her friends about me. And then I forgot to take the Craigslist ad down. So I had people, contacting me to clean. And I'm thinking, why me? I'm not even a good cleaner. But I think they just wanted a reliable, hardworking student. And so I cleaned houses to get through school. And I had a few friends who really needed to make some money. And I hired them and things just slowly grew. And then I met a property manager, and it all just kind of happened by chance. I had these flyers that I advertised my cleaning services, and I decided to go into apartment complexes and ask the property managers if I could hang up the flyer, thinking that if someone saw the flyer, maybe they would call for a cleaning. And I walked into this one complex called the Laurels, and I met Andrew, and Andrew, the manager of the Laurels, said, "Hey, I got this opportunity for you. How do you feel about cleaning thousands of apartments this summer?" And I said, sure. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but that's how it started. It was very innocent.
I loved I loved, I don't think, I mean, yeah, I read that you managed to get 45 people to quit in one day. I think that's got to be like an
Yeah.
all-time record, because one of the things you talk about like a lot is failure, and actually, how a lot of us have just got this idea of failure, because, we look at it, this is a theme that's come up a few times, how failure is seen as such a dirty word, but actually, failure is, well, how did you get 45 people to quit in one day, firstly?
Yeah, so that was a pretty bad day. That was the third day of our contract. And, I just didn't know anything about leadership. You hear about leadership, you read about leadership, but you don't really know what it means or what it takes to be a leader until you're in that position. And here I was, 21 years old, and I'm leading 60 of my own peers. They're my age. Some of them are my friends. And I was just put in this position. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't check on any of my team members once that summer. I sat in the air-conditioned clubhouse while they were scrubbing these dirty, filthy college apartments. And on the third day, 45 of them walked into the clubhouse where I was sitting, and they said, "We don't want to work here anymore." And they just walked out. And I'm so glad that happened. At the moment, it was devastating and embarrassing. And the thing was, I was a good person. I just didn't know how to be a leader.
Yeah.
And so that was a really pivotal moment for me. And I think it really shaped me as a young leader, I had to really reflect and think, well, what should I be doing? How should I be acting? And I realized I have to be the first one there and the last one to leave. And I need to, check on my people and help them and make sure they know how important they are to me. And I was able to get all 45 back. I had a meeting with all of them, and I apologized for the way I was acting, and I promised to make some changes. But I think the point there is, how did I know at 21? I could have gone out and found 45 new employees. I could have just quit. But not only did I not quit, I also went back to those 45 people and said, hey, we need to talk about, I messed up, and I think back to my childhood. And when I was growing up, we were forced to fail. My parents let us do things knowing that we would probably fail. But then when we failed, we had to talk about it. And even if it was very uncomfortable, we had to say what we would have done differently. And so I think that being raised that way just made, it was an instinct. I just knew I had to get these people back and apologize and talk about my failure and keep moving forward. And that's been a theme in my journey as a leader, for sure.
Yeah, because you talk about like how looking back, I think a couple of years in, looking back, you realize that every single time you failed, something great always, happened after that.
Oh yeah, every time. And I mean, there are so many failures. I spent a part of my loan on sushi and sake bombs for my friends and I. But I'm so glad, because I learned how important it is to manage your money after that. And so every time I messed up, I look back and I think, wow, it was a really dumb mistake, but I'm so glad I made it, because it made me a better leader, better, person. And it shaped me. Failures always propel you forward if you let them.
And you talk also about, you talking about the home you grew up in and how like failure you almost encouraged. Like another thing, like curiosity. This was a theme and like a word that I kept hearing again and again. And it was in your home in particular. Curiosity was constantly nurtured. It was constantly encouraged. How like integral do you think that was to just everything that's come on, your development, since then, having that, that curiosity just about everything around you?
Yeah. So the TED Talk I gave was all about curiosity, and it is not on how to retire by the age of 20. I am not retired. I did not retire at the age of 20. I made a list when I was 10, and the list is called How to Retire by 20. And the list has things like dog walking and cleaning houses. It's so weird. It's the things I'm doing now. I wrote this list when I was 10. And I think, it says a lot about my parents, the environment that I grew up in. It was anything that you wanted, this, like, there isn't a limit. You can be whatever it is you want to be. And they just let us run with these crazy ideas. I remember I had a lemonade stand on the weekends. I decided I wanted a retail store. And so my dad built me this wooden stand, and I would sit out on the street and sell, random household items. And they encouraged our creativity. And I think that's what I've tried to emulate at Student Made. I really tried to create an environment where, look, I'm going to empower you to try, and I'm going to give you all the tools and the resources, and I'm going to believe in you. And this culture is one where we want to see you transcend limits and do things that you don't think are possible. And I think that comes from my parents, because that's what they did for my sister and I.
Yeah, I love that. And like your dad, he's a lawyer, and he would actually turn down cases which could have made him huge amounts of money simply because they didn't interest him. And he encouraged you guys to only like invest your time and energy into things that you're truly excited about. I love that. I think we've had about a couple of interviews with just some amazing parenting advice. And I'm clocking these ones for when I've got kids. I'm like, shit, I've got to do that, because I just think what an amazing sort of like role model, because by so many things we're often told we've got to just do this or do that just to get work experience and stuff we're not necessarily interested in, and going down careers, and hey, just, if you're not interested, not excited by something, then forget about it and find that things which does excite you. And I love that. That wasn't so much a question, more that I got to clock that to myself. But yeah, what a cool role model.
Well, I turned down that job in finance that had a great salary, and I think it's because I watched, like you said, I watched my dad. He's a lawyer, but he doesn't make a ton of money. Yeah. He chooses cases that are interesting to him. He specializes in land use law. That's his thing. He loves it. But he's so happy and fulfilled. And I always thought, man, I want that in my life. And I chose cleaning. And everyone around me said, what are you doing? I mean, out of all the industries in the world to choose, It's not very glamorous, but I was excited about it.
Yeah.
And I think another story about my dad, that's, I don't know if I share too often. So he's an attorney. And when I incorporated my business, I actually had a different name. It was not Student Made. And my dad warned me, he said, before you incorporate, you should make sure that you're the only one, with this name. Make sure there isn't another company who owns the rights to this name. Well, sure enough, I didn't do my research, and I incorporated, and I ended up choosing the name of a major cleaning franchise. So I infringed on their trademark, and I got a cease and desist letter from an attorney, and they were, telling me that I had to throw away everything I had with my logo on it. And I had just spent my whole business loan on getting all of these, supplies with our logo on it. So I had to throw away everything that I'd worked so hard to get with that loan at such a young age. Well, I later found that my dad he knew I was infringing on someone's trademark. And so, how hard is it as a parent to stomach that, to watch your child it was a $10,000 mistake, after I'd worked so hard to get that loan. Now I'm back at negative 10,000, but what a lesson. I always do my research now. And so I think from that, I've learned. I was very angry when I found out, I was very angry at my dad, but now I'm so thankful, and I'm so grateful that my parents had the courage to let my sister and I fail like that. And I try to do that in our culture at Student Made, because something I really see with millennials, which is the age group that we mainly employ. Millennials are 18 to 34 right now. I see this lack of confidence. And it's because they haven't failed really on their own. There's always been someone there helping them up. We grew up, I'm a millennial. We're a generation of helicopter parenting. And a lot of times the first time they're failing is at work. And so we create an environment that's safe for failure. We push failure, we encourage it. We let them make mistakes, knowing that they're making mistakes, and we have to stomach that and watch that. But with every mistake, they become more confident in themselves, because that's the only way you learn self-confidence and independence, is when you fall down by yourself and you have to get up by yourself. So I really think that our culture, it's, you wouldn't think a culture of failure is a good thing, but I believe that it's a great thing, because our people become independent, successful young adults because of that culture.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said largest obstacle getting in the way of us being successful is our complete lack of independence. And through failing, yes, and then being on the floor and actually having to get up on our own 2 feet and stand up again, that builds that sort of, you almost become like a bit bulletproof. You've got to fail to fail. And then actually, you realize, actually, like, I'm fine. You can actually deal with it. You don't have to be wrapped in cotton wool. You can actually, okay, it hurts, but then you get up and you're stronger for it. So I totally agree with that. So with sort of growing up in an environment where, like you said, like you're kind of encouraged and you're nurtured. Like, if a lot of our listeners, I'm sure, maybe then, some of them haven't grown up in those environments, and maybe have holding or walking around with a load of like limiting beliefs holding them back from pursuing their dreams. What kind of advice would you kind of give those kind of people?
I think that it's really important. I think who you surround yourself with is so important.
Yeah.
And I think that even if you grew up in a home that wasn't like the home I grew up in, if you can find people who you admire, people who, the life they have is the life that you want to have, and surround yourself with those people, because those people usually are the kind of people who are giving, who want to help, who, want to build others up. Because, I know certainly the people in my life who are successful, who have fulfilled lives, they want to show others how to have that kind of life. And I read somewhere, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So who are you spending your time with? And one thing I think I did is I always surrounded myself with people who I could learn from. Now, these weren't always people in my industry. I actually didn't really know many people in my industry. But if I found someone who I really admired or really thought, wow, I could learn a lot from that person, I put myself in that environment. And it was very uncomfortable and it was very awkward. And, you can't just go up to somebody and ask, can you be my mentor? But you can start to build that relationship. Yeah. And so I would ask, if we could meet for coffee. And sometimes I would get denied time after time after time, but with enough persistence, the person will meet you for coffee. And I would just ask questions, and I was like a sponge. And I think they saw that I was truly interested and truly wanted to learn. And so these people would, take me under their wing, and they would help me, because my age, regardless of the household I grew up in, my age was a huge obstacle. It still is a huge obstacle. It doesn't matter the kind of house I grew up in. When I walk into a room, a board meeting, and I am in my early 20s and everyone else in the room is at least double my age, they're all thinking, why are you in here?
Yeah.
And I had to prove, why I should be sitting at the table. And it was really hard. So I read a lot of books. I tried to read 2 books a month. And I tried to purposely put myself in situations that were uncomfortable so that I would grow, so that I would, step outside of my comfort zone. That's where the learning and growth happens. And then I surrounded myself with people who I admired and I could learn from. And I think anyone can do that, regardless of how you grew up or what baggage you're carrying. It's harder, the more limiting beliefs that you have, but you're your own obstacle. If you really want this life, then if you want to be fulfilled and happy in the work that you do and go to bed each night with a smile, knowing that you're contributing to the world the way that you want to be, then you have to push yourself to get outside of your comfort zone, because that's the only place it's going to happen.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. Yeah, absolutely. You can come just make a decision, decide, what kind of life you want, and then, just figure out a way to do it. Like you said, books,
Right.
mentors, surrounding yourself in the right environment,
Right.
like all those things. Like, yeah, fantastic advice. And another thing, when it comes to work, career, relationships, a lot of these things take time and patience, and we're living in a world at the moment, even more so, where people expect sort of instant gratification. What do you feel are the dangers of this?
Yeah, so I see this a lot, especially with millennials, because everything in our life has been so instant. We want to watch a movie, we can just log on and watch it. We want to get in touch with someone, we can send a text and there you go. But we need to learn patience, because a lot of the things that we want in our life take patience. And relationships are one of those things. And I think this idea of networking is, you go into this thinking, well, what can this person do for me? And, if I meet this person, how long will it take for this person to help me? But really, we need to be thinking, what can I do to help this person? How can I connect other people together? So I've always gone into relationships thinking, how can I help this person? How can I introduce this person to someone who might be able to help them? And sometimes you don't get anything from that relationship, and that's okay. But then other times that relationship, they'll pay it forward back to you in a way that you can't even imagine. And that's happened to me so many times and years later. And I think after you see it a time or two, you realize that you need patience. But it's definitely very hard for millennials. So in our business, in our culture, we really try to push the human, face-to-face interaction and relationship building. We don't hide behind our cell phones. We teach a communications class to all of our students. And in the class, they learn that words are only 10% of communication. So when you're sending a text, you're only giving 10%. And an emoji does not count as, a tone of voice. So even our leadership team, when we have feedback to give or when we need to talk to a team member, we always try to do it face to face, or worst case on the phone versus sending a text, because you've got to, it's almost like technology is great. But it shaped us. And some of the ways it shaped us are a little negative. And I think it's taken the human, interaction piece away. And so we're trying to build that back into our culture.
Amazing. Just saying, just before we started, I had the choice between like a fan, really loud and annoying background noise, or no fan. And like I mentioned, I'm in Sri Lanka, so sorry for just being
So
so.
hot.
I was really casually
Yeah.
just being like, just trying to wipe my head, being like, I'm so hot. It's like
Yeah.
60 degrees outside.
Yeah.
Last but not, we're coming last, a couple of speed round questions to finish off. What does a fulfilled life mean to you?
I think I think a fulfilled life is, you know, I don't think it's waking up every single day excited to go to work. Because I will tell you, there are some days I live a fulfilled life, and there are some days that I don't want to work, or I'm aggravated by the work I do, or I'm frustrated. That is normal. That's a normal feeling, I think. But I think having a clear idea of who you are and why you're here and what it is that you're contributing, that has to be very clear.
Mm,
And then having the chance to do that. But I think it takes a lot of self-discovery. I think you have to try a lot of things, and you have to be in a lot of different environments to figure out, this is my stupid human trick. This is why I was put on this world, to do this. And I realize mine is creating an environment that empowers people to try so that they can transcend limits. And it doesn't just mean student made. I've done this in other companies that the technology company that you mentioned. It doesn't matter. These are all vehicles. The cleaning company, the technology company, the speaking, these are all vehicles. But knowing that why, that deep sense of purpose really makes it so that you know what you're doing here. And I think so many people wander through life and they don't really know what it is they're contributing or why they're here. And I think that self-confusion leads to an unfulfilled life because there's something more and you just don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So I suggest a good friend of mine, one of my favorite books, Start with Why.
Sinek.
Yeah, and he has
when
a why
you're talking
discovery
about
course.
why a second ago, I was suddenly thinking like such a fantastic book, isn't it?
Yes, we teach why discovery to our students. It's really important because that's like your compass. It leads you, to things and you make decisions based on this thing. And, and that's how you live a life where you go to bed at night thinking, I'm doing what I should be doing. I'm contributing in the way that I want to be contributing. So I think that's what it means.
Fantastic. And what is one thing all our listeners can do today that will have a massive positive effect on their lives?
I think two things. I think reading is so important. I think that you have to constantly be learning. And I still try to read one book a month. So if you can read one book a month, you're going to really grow and learn and become everything you have a better chance of becoming everything you want to be. The second thing I think is when it comes to failure, when it comes to the limiting self-beliefs that we have, what I try to do is think, what's the worst thing that could happen? And I try to imagine the worst case scenario and I wrap my head around that. And then I'm not afraid of that anymore because I've already thought of the worst thing that could happen and kind of how I would deal with it. And that allows me to push forward and that fear goes away. So read, grow, the minute you stop growing, I believe, is the minute you start dying. And that sounds morbid, but that's what I believe. And the second thing is when you have that limiting belief, stop for a minute and think, what's the worst thing that could happen? Why am I so afraid of this? Wrap your head around that. And then it's not so scary and you can move forward.
Fantastic. And which book would you say has had the biggest impact on your life?
So I love Start with Why, one of my favorite books, highly recommend it. But Delivering Happiness, the story of Zappos, is a book that I read when I was in college that really shaped the culture of student made. It's what led to our core values. And so that book just has a special place in my heart because it shaped so much of the company that we have. But great book about how Zappos built their company and built the culture around their people.
Last but not least, how can people stay in touch, find out more about you and your work?
Well, I have a website. It's just KristenHadeed.com, or you can go to studentmade.com and I have a blog. And yeah, we're doing some exciting things. The book will be out in 2017. So we're excited to share our story and our message with the world.
Kristen, thank you so much. This has been so fun talking to you. From the absolute sauna that is Sri Lanka, I can now just jump in like an ice bath or something. But
yeah.